Welcome to the Elder Darkness. Tonight we slip quietly into an age when shadows linger at the edges of sight and whispers carry further than footsteps. The air is hushed, the trees lean close, and somewhere beyond the horizon, something old begins to stir again. In this tale, the quiet is never quite empty. You will probably fall asleep listening to this story, which is perfectly fine, because the shadows of Middle-earth do not mind an audience that snores. Before we wander further, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps the shadows flickering and the lanterns lit. And while you're here, let us know where in the world you're drifting off from tonight. Perhaps we can imagine our voices traveling through forests, across mountains, and into your dreams. Now lie back and relax as we travel to the world of Middle-earth. Whispering Shadows. During the Watchful Peace, Sauron hides in Dol Guldur, regaining form as rumors and strange creatures stir unease in Greenwood. The Third Age is quiet, or so it appears. Centuries of peace stretch across the realms, long enough for people to forget that evil is patient. Men build villages and quarrel over fences, dwarves dig too deeply for comfort, and hobbits, those half-forgotten folk, concern themselves with gardens and pantries. Yet in Greenwood the Great, the forest does not breathe easily. Its southern reaches feel heavier, as though the roots themselves are dragging down into something dark. Travelers speak of sickness among the deer, of spiders larger than hounds weaving webs that glisten even at midday. And all the while, an unseen figure gathers his strength within the fortress of Dol Guldur. He is called the Necromancer, though names are merely veils. In truth, it is Sauron, not destroyed at the end of the Second Age, but diminished, lurking like smoke that refuses to clear. He does not yet wear a fair mask or stride openly. Instead, he whispers, luring stray spirits, feeding on fear, binding creatures of shadow to his will. Middle-earth historians still debate whether Sauron chose Greenwood because of its ancient power or because it was simply overlooked, tucked away while the free peoples busied themselves elsewhere. Either way, it proves a clever hiding place. The Watchful Peace, as later chroniclers call it, lasts for centuries, and to most, it is a time of calm. But peace here is more a blanket thrown over something restless beneath. Sauron drifts through the dark halls of Dol Guldur, his form not yet restored, but his mind sharp as ever. He remembers Numenor's drowning. He remembers Gil-galad's blade. He remembers Isildur's weakness. Every memory is a coal he nurses, waiting until the fire grows again. The forest creatures feel it before men do. Birds abandon the southern wood, their songs falling silent. Wolves slip closer to villages at night. A farmer near the borders once swears that a tree shifted when he was not looking, its roots curling like claws toward him. His neighbors laugh, but he moves north anyway. By the time others begin to notice, Greenwood's name has changed. It is now called Mirkwood, the Forest of Shadow. One event remembered in later tales happens here. Gandalf the Grey, ever the meddler, pays Greenwood a visit. He pretends to be merely wandering, but his eyes are sharper than most, and he senses what others ignore. He walks under webs that stretch between blackened branches and feels the weight of dread pressing upon him. It is said that he even glimpses Dol Guldur from afar, its towers broken, yet somehow alive, like bones that refuse to lie still. He does not yet speak of Sauron. he only calls the presence a shadow, a necromancer. But in truth, he suspects more. Quirky tidbits from this age often amuse historians, such as the rumor that some local woodman tried to brew ale from the sap of tainted trees, claiming it had extra kick. The result? A concoction so bitter that even dwarves spat it out, which is saying something. Whether this truly happened or was simply a tavern tale, no one knows. But the story lingers as proof that not every soul took the shadow seriously. Meanwhile, the necromancer continues his quiet work. He draws to him wraiths and wolves, and whispers even travel of strange shapes walking in moonlight, half seen, half felt. He toys with the idea of reaching for his ring of power, but it is lost somewhere in the wide sweep of the Anduin. Not yet, he thinks. First he must rebuild himself. First he must become fear once more. Through the long, watchful peace, kingdoms of men rise and fall almost without noticing what brews in the forest. Gondor squabbles, Arnor shatters, and still the necromancer waits. Patience, after all, is a weapon sharper than steel. He is content to whisper, to let the forest rot, to stretch his influence like smoke through the cracks of the world. What is a century to one who has seen the rise and fall of Numenor? The silence spreads, and though children in distant lands sleep without fear, here in Greenwood the shadows deepen, and the necromancer smiles unseen. Webs of deception. Dark power spreads through the forest as the necromancer's servants multiply, while Gandalf secretly investigates, suspecting more than mere spirits. The shadow lengthens. By now, the southern reaches of Greenwood no longer resemble the vibrant forest they once were. Moss clings heavy on the trees, fungi sprout with grotesque shapes, and the air itself tastes of iron and damp decay. Travelers avoid the paths, and those who dare speak of webs so thick they block out the moonlight. It is here that Sauron, still cloaked as the necromancer, strengthens his hold. He is not merely hiding, he is weaving a net of fear, one thread at a time. Creatures answer his call. Orcs creep back into the forest, not in armies yet, but in scattered bands that raid lonely huts. Wargs prowl at the edges, their eyes gleaming like coals. And most dreadful of all, the great spiders, descendants of Shelob herself, thrive under his dark influence. Their hunger spreads as swiftly as their webs, and soon whole glades are abandoned, the trees draped in silk like tombs. Middle-earth historians still debate whether Sauron actively summoned these creatures or simply encouraged what already festered. Either way, the result is the same. Greenwood becomes a place where shadows multiply. Among the free peoples, whispers carry, but few act. Elves of Mirkwood, led by King Thranduil, fortify their halls deeper underground, a glittering refuge sealed from the spreading darkness. They do not challenge Dol Guldur directly. Why would they? It seems but a haunted ruin. Unsettling, yes, but surely not a threat to the world entire. This is the trick of Sauron's disguise. He plays small, unimportant, a flicker of necromancy rather than the Dark Lord reborn. And for a time, the ruse works. Not for everyone, though. Gandalf returns to the forest more than once, poking about like an annoyingly curious neighbor who insists something is wrong with your roof. He senses a deeper malice than mere ghosts. One visit takes him dangerously close to Dol Guldur itself. He later recalls hearing voices that were not voices, whispers that crawled across his mind like cold fingers. He leaves quickly, but not empty-handed in knowledge. The necromancer is growing, and Gandalf is not fooled. Meanwhile, quirky tales still float up from the woodmen of the forest. One band of hunters supposedly trained a raven to scout webs from above, an early drone program, if you will. The poor bird never returned. Some say it flew straight into Dol Guldur and perched on the necromancer's shoulder, becoming his spy. Others claim it ended up in a pot of stew. Either way, the hunters didn't try again. Far away, in shire holes no one bothers to map yet, hobbits are blissfully unaware. But the threads of fate tug strangely. For during this very age, Bilbo Baggins' great-grandparents are tending fields and minding their ale. The hobbit line prepares, unknowingly, for its entanglement with this shadowed forest generations later. The necromancer has no idea yet that a little fellow with hairy feet will one day tip his plans sideways, but the stage is quietly being set. In Gondor, too, signs appear. Gondorian rangers patrolling the Anduin report unsettling movements, lights across the river, orcs vanishing into the trees, and rumors that the old stronghold of Amon Lank, where Dol Guldur now squats, is not entirely empty. The steward listens but does little. His worries lie elsewhere, with succession and neighbors. Middle-earth historians still debate whether Gondor should have acted sooner. Some claim an early strike might have weakened Sauron beyond recovery. Others argue that without proof of his true identity, no kingdom would risk a costly campaign. Through all of this, Sauron bides. His greatest skill is deception, and here he thrives. He spreads fear without revealing his hand. He sends out creatures to harry villages, to spread tales of the necromancer, the mysterious dark sorcerer who commands death. The name alone does much of the work for him. People imagine horrors greater than he even bothers to manifest. It's the classic villain move. Why chase mortals when you can let their imaginations do the running? Still, he is not idle. In the caverns of Dol Guldur, he experiments. Spirits of the restless dead are bound, twisted into mockeries of life. Orcs that wander too close are bent to his service with promises of power and meat. He even tests subtle magics of concealment, cloaking the forest so that prying eyes cannot see the depth of his corruption. It is during this era that Gandalf's suspicions sharpen into certainty. The Grey Wizard begins to suspect that the necromancer is none other than Sauron, reborn in secret. He does not yet share this openly with all, but he does whisper his concerns to Elrond and Galadriel. Their unease grows, though still the others of the wise hesitate. After all, the ring wraiths have not been seen. Sauron's name is but a memory, and isn't it more comforting to believe evil stays gone? And so the deception continues. The forest blackens, the spiders feast, and Dol Guldur becomes a heart of dread pulsing in the wild. Few dare enter, fewer still return, and Sauron, cloaked in the mask of the necromancer, smiles unseen, for fear itself is often the strongest chain. The gathering storm. The wise debate whether the shadow is Sauron returned, while whispers of dwarves, dragons, and wandering hobbits unknowingly brush against his schemes. The centuries keep sliding forward, and the Watchful Peace wears thin, like a cloak stretched too far. The necromancer's influence grows steadily, while the world above ground continues its business, distracted by politics, dragons, and, believe it or not, treasure hunts. By now, whispers have reached Rivendell, Lothlorien, and even the halls of Mithlond. Elrond sits with furrowed brow, Galadriel gazes with her piercing foresight, and Círdan, down by the Grey Havens, quietly strokes his beard. They all feel the same chill. The forest in the east festers. Yet still, no proof can force the hand of the wise. Middle-earth historians still debate whether this hesitation was wisdom or folly. To act without certainty might have shattered fragile alliances. To wait, however, allowed Sauron to knit his power more tightly. Meanwhile, the larger world busies itself. Dwarves are making trouble again, or perhaps it's better to say trouble finds them. Smaug the dragon, golden-bellied and arrogant, slumbers on the vast wealth he stole from Erebor, not terribly far from Mirkwood itself. The Necromancer, always a strategist, keeps one eye on that dragon. Imagine the devastation if such a beast could be bent to his service. And though he never quite gains that hold, the possibility hums beneath the surface of his plans. Further west, a different story begins to stir. Hobbits, of all people, prepare for their moment in the larger tale. When Bilbo Baggins is roped into Thorin Oakenshield's grand "Let's Reclaim Our Mountain" adventure, his path will cross Mirkwood. And this, amusingly, is where the Grand Necromancer indirectly collides with a party of dwarves and one very reluctant burglar. For though Bilbo and his companions will face spiders and nearly starve in that forest, their greatest peril comes from the Necromancer's mere presence nearby. He never notices them, of course. Imagine Sauron later, smacking his shadowy forehead. I missed what in my backyard. It is also around this time that Gandalf's investigations take on sharper urgency. On one of his stealthy visits to Dol Guldur, he discovers something horrifying. The spirit of Thrain II, father of Thorin, imprisoned and broken within those dark halls. Stripped of his ring of power, Thrain babbles incoherently, a shadow of the proud dwarf he once was. Gandalf witnesses this ruin and knows beyond doubt that the Necromancer is no mere phantom. This is Sauron's work, the domination of wills, the breaking of kings. And so the Grey Wizard departs in haste, carrying the truth like a torch back to the wise. Here lies one of those delicious debates. Did Gandalf tell Thorin about Thrain's fate? Some chronicles suggest he kept it close, fearing the truth would wound the dwarf's pride beyond repair. Others claim he hinted at it, letting Thorin's anger fester into a drive for revenge against Smaug, which, in a roundabout way, was quite useful later. Either way, the story intertwines. A broken dwarf in Dol Guldur, a dragon asleep in Erebor, and a hobbit fiddling with his pocket handkerchief, all threads woven into the Necromancer's shadow. And let's not forget a fringe tidbit that always tickles the scholarly imagination. A band of wandering minstrels supposedly camped near Dol Guldur once and composed an eerie ballad about the Castle of Bones. The song spread into taverns as far away as Bree, where locals sang it loudly without the faintest clue that it described Sauron's lair. Imagine the Dark Lord hiding in secret, listening to his evil headquarters turned into a drinking song. If he had eyebrows, they'd be twitching furiously. The wise, however, are no longer laughing. Gandalf speaks of what he has seen, Galadriel nods with grim certainty, and Elrond adds his voice. This necromancer must be watched. But Saruman the White, head of their council, insists patience. After all, he secretly searches for the One Ring himself, hoping to claim it before Sauron can. And so delay creeps in, and the shadow is allowed to deepen further. Meanwhile, the world unknowingly brushes past the necromancer's schemes. Bilbo and the dwarves skirt the edges of Dol Guldur on their way east, unaware of the vast power stirring only miles away. They stumble through spider webs, fight for breath under the choking canopy, and survive only by luck and wit. One could almost imagine Sauron chuckling in the background. His spiders get a decent meal, but nothing more. Had he noticed the Hobbit, the story of the ring might have ended before it even began. The storm gathers slowly, inexorably. Dol Guldur is no longer merely a haunted tower, but a fortress bristling with orcs, wargs, and sorcery. Scouts of the elves report drums in the night. Farmers whisper of lights flashing like lightning beneath the trees. And through it all, the necromancer sits in his gloom, pulling every strand of fear tighter, patient as stone. From shadow to war, Gandalf uncovers the truth. The White Council acts, and the necromancer flees Dol Guldur, setting the stage for the War of the Ring. The Watchful Peace is at last broken. The veil that has shrouded Dol Guldur can no longer be ignored. By now, the necromancer's fortress thrums like a dark heart, each beat sending ripples of dread into the wider world. Gandalf has returned with proof. Galadriel has added her voice, and even the stubborn Saruman cannot dismiss what presses at the edges of Middle-earth. The wise gather, the White Council convenes, and the matter is no longer whether something must be done, but how. The council debates with the sharpness of blades. Should they strike Dol Guldur now, risking battle without knowing the full measure of the enemy? Or wait longer, riskier still, while the shadow coils stronger? Middle-earth historians still debate whether Saruman's famous hesitation here was tactical prudence or self-serving sabotage. What is clear is that the necromancer has grown bold enough to rattle the chessboard, and the White Council cannot ignore him. Gandalf argues with particular fire, for he has seen Thrain's ruin and smelled the rot in Dol Guldur's dungeons. Galadriel, ever perceptive, speaks gently yet firmly. This is no mere shade, but Sauron himself. Elrond supports them, though his voice remains cautious, like a river flowing slow but deep. Saruman, however, insists they proceed carefully, urging delay, claiming he has evidence the One Ring washed into the sea. The irony, of course, is that Saruman wants the ring for himself, and by slowing the council, he hopes to find it before Sauron does. A clever plan on paper, but in practice, it gives the necromancer more time to gather his might. While the wise argue, the shadow strikes outward. Orc raids increase, wargs howl across the borders of Rhovanion, and rumors of dark spirits filter into Gondor. Even hobbits far away in their peaceful shire notice odd weather and mutter about a strange heaviness in the air, though of course they blame it on bad harvests and overripe mushrooms. The turning point comes when Gandalf uncovers undeniable proof that the necromancer is indeed Sauron. He sneaks into Dol Guldur, yes, again. Clearly he has nerves of mithril, and confirms the presence of the Nine, the ring wraiths, stirring in secret. That discovery tips the balance. If the Nazgul walk again, then there is no denying the Dark Lord is rising. The council finally acts. Galadriel lends her strength, Elrond offers wisdom, Gandalf brings his urgency, and Saruman, begrudgingly, his power. Together they assault Dol Guldur. The necromancer resists, unleashing terror and flame, yet the combined might of the wise proves too strong. Dol Guldur shudders beneath their assault, its walls quaking, its shadow torn back. For the first time in long centuries, Sauron flinches. He abandons his fortress and flees eastward toward Mordor, where the foundations of Barad-dûr wait to be rebuilt. Here lies a curious scholarly debate. Did the White Council truly defeat Sauron, or did they merely push him to reveal his hand? Many argue he had long prepared to return to Mordor, and the fall of Dol Guldur was simply the nudge he needed. After all, if you're a Dark Lord with ambitions of world domination, why hide in a forest when you can build a flaming tower visible for miles? Quirky lore survives from this moment too. One tale claims that when the council drove Sauron from Dol Guldur, the spiders fled in such a panic that they scattered across Middle-earth, causing sudden infestations in villages as far away as Bree. Farmers reportedly woke up to find barns encased in webs overnight. Whether or not this is true, one can imagine Bilbo's descendants swatting at unusually large spiders while muttering, "Some strange shadow must be to blame." And so the Necromancer of Dol Guldur is revealed at last as Sauron reborn. The Watchful Peace is shattered, replaced by the long dread that leads into the War of the Ring. Gandalf's suspicions are vindicated, Galadriel's foresight confirmed, and Saruman's duplicity quietly deepens into betrayal. From here, the pieces slide swiftly. The ring wraiths ride, the Shire stirs, and the stage is set for the greatest struggle of the Third Age. The shadow has fled, but it has not been destroyed. Indeed, it has only returned to the place where it can grow stronger still. The forest breathes a little easier, yet the world beyond feels the first true shiver of the storm to come. And Sauron, now in Mordor, smiles, for the game has only just begun. And now, as the tale of the Necromancer fades into silence, let your own thoughts drift gently, like leaves carried downstream. The storm has not yet broken, but in this quiet moment, we rest in the space between. Imagine the dark towers of Dol Guldur empty now, their halls echoing with the sigh of wind where once shadows whispered. Picture the forest slowly breathing again, shafts of sunlight piercing through webs, the faint song of birds daring to return. Let your body sink into comfort, as though you too are a weary traveler who has escaped those haunted woods. Each breath becomes a step away from fear, each exhale a release of the tension carried through centuries of shadow. The wise have acted, the Necromancer has fled, and for a little while, Middle-earth breathes easier. You too can allow yourself that same release. The world is vast, full of wars and wonders, but none of that presses on you now. Tonight, the only task before you is rest. The shadow has been driven back, and though it waits to rise again, that worry belongs to tomorrow, or perhaps another age entirely. For you, here, now, there is only peace. Close your eyes and let the forest fade into darkness. Let the towers crumble into dust. Let even the memory of the Necromancer dissolve into the quiet of your own breathing. You are safe, you are steady, and you are slipping into dreams. Good night, traveler. May your rest be long, your dreams gentle, and your journey light.